I was going to talk about something entirely different today, but I decided that it is high time that we have something positive to talk about and to showcase exactly how 2025 is probably what I call the revitalization of the gaming industry. Not in full, but let's say in a new form that if carries on to 2026, it might actually be a new amazing age in video games. And I think that what just happened since yesterday is what we need to look forward to, because that's how we remembered great video games. That's what we used to remember from our childhoods, and that's what we need to bring back. And I'm of course talking about the release of Hollow Knight Silksong. Greetings ladies and gents, my name is Yozo the Bearded Balkan Blabbermouth and I am discussing, and today I want to talk about a game that I honestly, and this is me being honest, have not played all that much. I have played the original Hollow Knight very loosely and very scarcely, because it was in a time of my life where I didn't really play video games for quite a bit of time. So it is not a game that I have played in full. However, I do want to play it in full, and I do want to play Silksong. And I want to talk about the impact that this game has made ever since the first one came out and now with its sequel, because I would firmly believe that the future of games is in indie developers, not in AAA companies, not in big conglomerates. It is in the game community, and it is in passionate small teams of indie or double studios that actually produce a passionate project that has story, has in-depth, has life in it, and not just another number for the company. I'm going to start right off with the Steam DB page, and this is live by the way, and I'm going to refresh it for you to just see what's been happening. We currently have 491.805 people playing right now. When it released, which was on a Thursday mind you, it broke 534,000 players, and now today it actually peaked even higher to 562,000 players. Mind you, this is an indie developer, indie game, and this game has been in development for I think over 6 years or more, and there wasn't any information, or there was very scarce information throughout those years about the game, to the fact that a lot of people thought that that game would never actually come out and it will never come to fruition. Now, it is important to note that the overall review score is 86%, so that means that there are around 15% of people that have not been pleased with this game. And I actually took the time to go to some Steam reviews, and I discovered that actually what made those people, or at least the ones that I read from, frustrated is like things like difficult level, things like changed mechanics, things like games changes from the first game that they just personally didn't appreciate, which I believe it is fair. All of the reviews had around 8 to 10 hours of gameplay, which I believe it is quite substantial to have an educated opinion about what you like and what you don't like about this game, at least mechanically wise. That's absolutely normal, because when you have changes in a game, bound to be people who don't like those changes. And when we go to some tweets that I personally very much enjoy, the Impure King says this: I love the fact that budget-friendly video games have been dominating 2025. Silksong, $20. Expedition 33, $50. Elden Ring, Night Train, $40. Split Fiction, $50. Helldivers Xbox port, $40. And you might think some of these games are kind of full price, but then you're living in 2019, because currently what is being pushed towards us is that the normal price of a brand new, very promoted and stuff like that game should be $80. 80, not 50, not 60, not 70. $80. So these games that I just listed are promoted as cheap games, and we actually have an article that we're gonna get for in the minute. We also have another tweet from Pirate Nation that I do love, and I do love the picture as well. No pre-orders, $20, crashes all stores, no review copies, breaks 500,000 players on Steam alone. in hours, Silksong has annihilated AAA gaming and set a precedent. Now, let me just clarify some of those things to you. There were no pre-orders. There were no review copies sent to journalists in game journals beforehand. Everybody had to buy it on release day and review it by themselves, which is amazing, and I think that's how it's supposed to be, because game journals are woefully dishonest and have been for years right now. So these things should end, in my opinion. And it crashed several stores. I think it crashed it crashed Steam, and it was amazing to see, and it broke the 500k barrier. So you might think that for $20, yeah, it's cheap, that's why they bought it. Well, you might be right for some of the people, but again, they bought it. Money is in the bank. So basically, this game is a success and people are playing it. If 500k people are playing your game and on the second day they actually break the day one release record by 30,000 people, then you can bet your fucking ass that the game is actually good. And then we go to an article that I actually do find interesting. It was mentioned in several tweets with a screenshot. This from DiscussThing, and it says Silksong's $20 tag could hurt the indie scene, but only if they let price anxiety win. Now, I find this very interesting because there is some merit to what we just read. In an age where games are being progressively expensive and demanding more financials from players, having a $20 might be like throwing honey at them, and that cheap honey, and people were gonna just swarm over it just because it's cheap and it has some history, and they're gonna lean on that history, which I agree that might be an issue in the long run, especially for indie devs. However, it also will drive competitions to make the game as good as Silksong, especially judging by the overwhelming reviews, which are in the tens of thousands. And the article starts, Silksong will be priced at $20. It feels low for how long it's being developed and how big the franchise is. Developer team Cherry could charge 30 or even $40 and still sold millions of copies because of how beloved the original Hollow Knight is, not to mention how much hype players have had for Silksong since 2019. And yes, you could have charged that much, but that's what happens when a dev just wants to have as many people enjoy their game, because that translates to long-term involvement and long-term fan base, which is far more valuable than just robbing everyone of their money right away. I understand that some people might think that $20 is too low and they're not gonna make money, or they're just gonna downgrade the market or whatever. But yeah, that's just what a developer might have wanted. They just want to say, look, we can do this for $20 for you. You're gonna enjoy it. More people are gonna enjoy it because it's far more affordable than a $70 or $80 AAA game, and you're gonna have a grand old time. We trust our product and we want to share it with you for cheap because we know it's good and we know you keep coming back to it and you bring your friends. That's confidence, in my opinion. Still, it really costs only $20. The low price is making some people, including other indie developers, believe the game is so cheap that it will hurt the pricing options for the game. There is a screenshot here that is actually linkable. A person named Lone Fungus is saying, as a dev making a smaller Metroidvania than Silksong, which I originally thought it would be fairly $20. What should I price now? It will be a 10-15 hour game, but it was made by one person with limited dev time and funds. I can't afford to give it away for free. And I understand that. However, that can only push people to polish their games, to make them as best as possible, to make the story good, to make everything good, and to release it in a time window that they would find profitable and they would find the best for players. Those things can be researched and can be made. Now, will this Lone Dev's game be better than Silksong? We don't know. It might actually be if the game is good. However, everyone can price their game as much as they want. It shouldn't rely on another game being priced. If you have confidence in product and you have confidence that people will like it, then you can price it at, let's say, the same price. New and small indie devs may think players will compare their game's prices. If it's anything close to $20, people would say this game isn't Silksong, so $20 is too much. The devs fear this will force them to undercharge for their games. This potential pressure to reduce prices could make the new game projects unsustainable, since these games aren't Silksong and never will be, so they must be worth less than $20. by that logic, let's say games like Mass Effect are not Dragon Age, the old Dragon Age, or Battlefield is not Call of Duty, or vice versa. So neither of those games should be priced at the prices that they are. Is that it? No, because they're different games. The fact that it is not Silksong, or that it doesn't feel as good or as polished as Silksong, does not make it any less worthless or be priced at any less, because it is an entirely different experience. If you're trying to copy Silksong, if you're trying to copy Hollow Knight to the bone, and Silksong releases, then yeah, you might have a problem. But if you have an original idea, it doesn't matter if it's not Silksong or it doesn't look as polished as Silksong. You can still price it at $20. You can then make a discount, or you can just fucking have confidence in your product because it is your product. If devs believe their game is competing with Silksong across the board, including price, that could lead of giving up, or as it has happened, delaying their games only to avoid a release near that of Silksong. Depending on how far it spreads, the ripples could reach throughout the indie scene and cause quite a bit of damage. Now, the release window close to another game is something entirely different. Then if you have a well-established franchise that is going to release, then if you have an indie game that is not very promoted, then it might be swallowed nonetheless, even with a higher price. This is something completely separate. You don't need to think like that. You need to think what your game is, and you need to focus on making your game the best possible. It's not a competition of two baked breads. It's a competition of a baked bread and a baked pie. They're two different foods. And then the writer goes, but I think we'll avoid most of this. What people forget is that Silksong isn't in competition with small and new indie games because its reach and scope are at a far higher level. That's actually true. Upcoming indie games compete with Silksong the way underground bands compete with Taylor Swift, or the way this article competes with the Washington Post's worthy feature. Now, I can agree with a part of that. However, every bit of well-written article and quality written piece, or a quality written music and performed music, as well as a quality made game, can perform better than a big game. Now, Silksong is an indie game. It is made from such a studio, even though the studio is much larger now. And if we look at it that way, then Silksong is actually outperforming most of the AAA games currently. So it is the same way that a smaller indie game can outperform games that have much higher chance. Now, will an indie game outperform Silksong? We don't know. If it's a good one, if it's a very quality one, if it gets picked up, then yes, Silksong is an established product. It is an established franchise. People have been waiting for it ever since the first game. It has that going for it. Now, if a new game comes along, it will have a harder time. True. However, that doesn't mean that it won't have success, and it won't set up the ground for even greater success in the future. It just has to be in the mindset of the developer that creates such a game to have quality, fun, entertainment, immersiveness, and escapism in mind, without anything that will distract a player from that. If you have that, might not happen now, but I'm sure that if you make a good, passionate project, it will be picked up by players, and it will have a very solid ground to stand on for any future. That's what happens with every successful indie game. That's what happened with Hollow Knight. And that's why we had Silksong that actually is now breaking all sorts of records, and it is breaking even game stores online. That's what you should be aiming for. That is basically what they're showing you. They're showing you that an indie game can actually demolish the AAA game industry. And that's what we should aim for, because the future, in my opinion, is indie games. Anyways, that's all I have for this video today. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoy my content, please leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment, and possibly join my DiscussThing Guild and help the channel grow, as well as help homeless animals and animals in shelters get the food, get the vet care they need. We do this on a weekly basis, and if you become a member, you also can see some of the videos that we post. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Kelso, this was DiscussThing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers and stay fresh.